Hi everyone, it's Caitlin Trouton here from Toon Boom in Content Marketing. Thanks so much for joining us for our Toon Boom webinar today. I'm here with Marie-Ève Chartrand, who is our Director of Customer Success and has been with us for over 10 years. She started out as a software instructor and then moved on to content creation. And these days she's been focusing on customer success. So welcome, Marie-Ève, to the webinar. So today, Marie-Ève is going to talk to you about vector drawing tools in Storyboard Pro. And we'll have that webinar going for about 15 minutes or 45 minutes. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have 15 minutes or so for your questions. So if you have any questions, you can put it into our question panel over on the right-hand side of your screen. And we will gather them together and answer them as we go along. So welcome to the webinar. And hello, Dawn.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. That's a nice introduction. Welcome, everybody. So let me start with the fun stuff already with Toon Boom Storyboard Pro. So I'm using Toon Boom Storyboard Pro 5.1 today, and my focus will be the vector drawing tool. Some of you may know that Storyboard Pro support both vector and bitmap drawing tools, but again, today we're just going to look at the vector ones. Just to explain a little bit what vector graphics are, if I draw a line, and actually let me increase the brush size just so that we can clearly see what I'm going to do. So very big. And so if I draw a vector line, I can zoom in forever on my line and it will never start pixelating, because the idea of a vector graphic is it's a mathematical curve, and every time I zoom, the line is recalculated, as opposed to bitmap. So if I was to add a bitmap layer and I draw a bitmap line, again, I'll increase the brush size to make sure it's big enough here. So if I start zooming on this line, you'll see that here, you can see that it starts pixelating because it's just the pixels that are painted. So let me clear these layers from here. So first of all, if you want to draw with Toon Boom Storyboard Pro, it's very useful to know where your toolbar is. So you'll find the drawing tools toolbar here over on the left in the default layout, unless you moved it around. And you have in each of these tools little arrows that indicate a drop down with additional tools in here. So if you want to go dig in there, you'll find quite a bit of additional useful tools. The first ones I'm going to start with are the pencil line and the brush tool, the pencil tool and the brush tool, to show you the differences between the two different types of lines that we have in actually all the Toon Boom software, which is Toon Boom Storyboard Pro and Harmony. And then, so you can adjust in the tool properties on the side. You're able to adjust size and presets and all that. Well, I'll show a bit more about this later. But so if I start with my brush tool here, and then I go with the pencil tool and I do a similar line, up front like this, they may look very similar, but I'll show you the main difference, and it can be useful for different uses. Therefore, if I use the contour editor tool, you'll see that the points for the brush line are located on the contour, and for the pencil line, they are situated at the center. Therefore, if I want to modify my lines, I can move the pencil line through the central points and it will position the entire line, as opposed to the brush tool where the points are on the contour. So I can grab some of the points and reshape a portion of the lines, or I can even delete some of the points, and so it reshaped really the contour. Therefore, we call the brush strokes contour lines and the pencil lines central lines. So as I said earlier, there's application for both of them. I like to do my sketches with my brush line because first of all, is just when the line touches, because there are contours. So let's see if I show you here. When I do this, my lines are actually touching. So if I zoom in, you can see that it's actually just one full object. If I do it with a pencil line, when I draw, you can see if I do view my show strokes here, you can see that the points are located at the center, but Storyboard Pro is kind enough to link them together. So let me put them a little further apart so that you can see what I mean. The central point, again, Storyboard Pro is so nice, it keeps linking them. But my point is, let me break it on purpose so I can show you what's going on with the pencil line. Is that it may appear that the lines are touching, but they are not, because it's a central vector. The edges is just, it's virtual. So when I try to paint afterwards, it might be sometime annoying to try to just quickly sketch with that. But again, it's really up to you. It's very subtle difference, especially if you have the connecting option enabled. Then it will just be connected, and you'll be good with that. On the other side, when I sketch, I often use a half transparent color, and let's say animation color erase. So I'll go with a light blue. If I start sketching, you'll see I have a nice overlap of color, which is very useful. And if I sketch like this, that's very useful. I have one block of line. If I do the same with the pencil line, you'll have a bit of a geometric artifact going on here. So if you want to sketch with half transparent color, I definitely recommend using the brush tool. Let me clear all of this. Now, I'll go back to a full black color here. You saw me clear the canvas a few times, and instead of erasing, because sometimes people say I want to clear something, and then they start erasing, and then even if I make it bigger, I'm erasing, and you can leave a lot of little bits and pieces here. And the joy of vector is that those are full object lines. So I'm able to grab those with the select tool and move them around. And so therefore, if I want to erase a line, let's say I don't want this one, I can select the entire line and press delete, and it's gone. I don't have to go around with the eraser. But sometime I might want to add or just erase that additional piece there. I can come in here and, erase a little bit like this. So that works. But I will never erase an entire object with the eraser. I will always go with the select tool for an entire object. Now,
actually, there's a little question, and I think it would be a good time to interrupt you for. So a couple of questions that came in is while you were showing how you can activate connecting the lines together or deactivate the connection between the two lines when you want to be sketching. One person is asking how you do that, and the other person is asking about using the brush stroke where it seems that it's a bit less smooth than the pencil stroke around the edges. Is that right? Can you adjust the settings of the brush tool so that it's less jaggy?
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to our brush lines. There's two different settings there, and you can see if I use the brush line, it looks a bit like it's a bit rougher, it shakes more. And if I go with a pencil line, then it gets a little bit more adjusted. What's happening here, it's a difference in settings. I have in my tool properties section, I have a smoothing setting. And then if I look at my pencil tool, the smoothing right now is set to 20. And if I look at the brush tool, it's set to 0. So now if I increase my smoothing, you'll see that my line will get smoothed out. And it's the same thing with a pencil line. If I reduce it, it will stay much closer to what I've drawn. So for example, if I use, I'll make it very simple. So I will draw a wavy line with a smoothing of 0. And you'll see that it remains pretty close to what I've drawn. Then if I increase the smoothing around 15, 20, and I draw the similar line, it will adjust just a little bit, just to remove the extra wrinkles. Then let's say I'll go to the extreme and put 100% smoothing. So if I draw that same line, then it's going to really cancel all the waves as much as possible. So when I draw something very precise, I'll keep my smoothing very low. I don't keep it to 0 personally because when I draw, I have a bit of a shaky line. So I'd like for some of it to be removed. But you can see even at 4, it keeps it really close. When I do a big cleanup and I have to draw a large curve, I increase my smoothing just so that my large curves are more fluid. And so I don't feel necessarily the shake of my hand. You have another tool that can be quite useful for when you draw is the rotate view. I like to use it because it's not always that I use a Cintiq. So when I just use a Wacom, just a pen tablet, then it's just easier to use the rotate view, so I can grab the perfect angle to do my my curve. Go back to the hand here. Oh yeah, and if ever you want to reset that view, at the bottom of your camera view, you have additional ways to reset the view. So you have the reset view, the reset rotation. Reset view will also reset the zoom. And that's very useful for the lines like this. And I think we had a second question for the connector.
Yeah, there was. Can you, there's a quick follow-up question to that one is, can you smooth the brushstroke after you've done it, or do you have to set the smoothing option first?
You can smooth it out after. I'll admit that I don't like the result as much as when you set it before. With the select tool, in the tool properties view, you do have quite a bit of options, and one of them being the smooth one. You can smooth it out. I just feel like it makes it too crinkly, but if I use a line that was not that crazy, now obviously this is an extreme example, but if you use a line like this, then you can smooth it out. But like if you repeat the action, you'll see that it will taper the ends and as well as the intersection like this. But so yeah, it's quite possible.
Thanks, Marie-Ève. That's the other question is how do you activate the connecting lines option?
Yes. By default, with the pencil line, if you want to have the central stroke connect, you'll see that the option here called auto close gap, not to confuse with the close gap for painting. So the auto close gap option for the pencil is on by default. Therefore, when you draw and you have your lines close together, I'll go back to view. In the extra section here, you'll see show strokes with a shortcut of K that will be able to show you your central lines. So you can see that those lines have been connected. Therefore, you'll see that you have the blue dot. When you have a blue dot, that means your vectors are connected, and if you try to paint, it will work. When you have a yellow dot, it indicates the end of a stroke. So if you have two strokes facing each other that are not connected, I'm just making it, see, it's so nice. It closes the gaps for you, so you're gonna have a fun time. But if I disable the option, this one here, and I do that again, then you'll see when you have two gaps like this, it's useful because when you zoom out, you can easily spot, oh, I might have an open zone here, and then you can come and close it. And there's different ways to close it. And one of them is to use the close gap tool here found in the paint bucket section. And the close gap allows you to draw a little line, and it will close the gap for you. So you could draw with an open line style and then close it with invisible lines. Now I'll hide these lines again with using the shortcut K. There you go.
Thanks.
Well, you're so welcome. Okay, so one other thing that is important when you draw is when you want to draw a vector. At the bottom of your panel here in the camera view or stage view, you have a few buttons to add layers. The first one that has the triangle, circle, and square is called Add Vector Layer. And the second one, which has that little mountain and the sun, is called Add Bitmap Layer. So this will add, it's a different type of layer. And so if I click on this one, Add Vector Layer, you'll see that all my tools are available. I can go ahead and start drawing vector. If I add the other bitmap layer here, you'll see, oh, I'm way off canvas. You can see that not all my tools are available, and if I start drawing, I'm drawing in bitmap. So just be mindful of that, and you'll see that the bitmap layers have a blue line here on the side. So I'll just delete that layer and carry on with my vector layers. So just be mindful when you draw a vector or bitmap to add the right type of layer. Then I want to show you a bit more about the contour editor tool, which allows you to reshape your lines. And to do so, I'll draw myself a wonderful pencil line and show you how you can reshape it. I will do it with not a smoothing of 0, but a higher smoothing. Because the lower your smoothing, the more points you'll have on the line and the more difficult it will be to reshape it. So if I go with the contour editor and I select my line, you'll see all the points. Just to really drive the point home, I'll do a line with a smoothing of 0 just to show that you get a few more points on the line. So avoid 0 smoothing, because then you're going to make your drawing heavy. It's going to be difficult to modify. You want to have a smoothing around at least 4 or 5, and I am often around 15, 20. So I'll take this one out. And here, if I use my contour editor tool, you can, if you want, grab points, move them around. You can also click in between points and move the curves around, and you can select one point and press delete, or several points, press delete. And obviously you saw that when you select the point, you also get access to the Bezier handle. So if you move them, you'll see that they are moving together. Here, it's the same thing, but if I want to break them, for example, I'd like to be able to move only one side of the curve and not the two at the same time. Maybe I want to create a corner. You have to hold down the Alt or Option key, and that will allow you to move only one of the handles. So same thing here. I'm able to create corners like this. You will also run in the case of you have broken lines and you would like them to move together so that you have a smooth curve. So if you grab the handle and bring it back, as soon as it crosses the threshold, it will snap back together. Same thing here. So if I do it again, you'll see as soon as I cross this threshold, they will move together. And then if you want to add a point, because you could want to add a point here, you would have to hold down the Control key on Windows and Command key on Mac, and then you have an extra point on your line. Now the other, if I use the rectangle tool, you'll see that if I grab the corner, I don't have any Bezier handle. When you're facing this situation, you'll hold down again the Alt or Option key, and it will allow you to pull out the handles. So the Alt key is super useful when using the contour editor to reshape your lines.
Very handy. Yes, definitely.
Okay, now I'll show you my favorite tool. When I draw a square, let's say a nice shape like this, Corners are never really nice, and every time I get close to a corner, you feel that I had to slow down to be mindful of the corner. So the shape is not really dynamic. What I do instead is I draw my shape like this. So you can see now my lines are nice and dynamic and no hesitation. I can really go wild. And then under the select tool, you'll find the cutter tool. So the cutter tool by default is used to cut a section of a drawing, grab it and move it around, or like, you can really go and scissor stuff around, grab it or delete it. You can do as you want with it. You can also do something really cool. If you just do a little stroke on the corner, then it will take out the extra bits and pieces, and then you get a nice shape. And I really love that tool because it makes your drawing so much more professional. It also works with the pencil line, but the corners look a little different, so I use it a lot more with the brush tool. So it works well when you have rounded corner. But if you decide to go ahead and change the, I'll select all my pencil lines, and if I decide to change it to mitra, miter. Some people pronounce it all differently. Then, it's not too bad actually. I think it works differently than harmony. Yeah, it keeps. Sorry. So yeah, it's not corners, it's ends. Okay, so if I change it to flat, you'll see that I have these little corner issues happening. So if you keep your ends rounded, it's pretty fine. But I find that this result works a lot better with the brush tool. And it's really one of the things I like most about the drawing tools in Storyboard Pro.
So that doesn't happen when you're in the brush tool. You don't have to worry about the corners?
No, not at all. Because really, I'm on a different layer here. Okay, let's clean that out of there. There's another option that is quite interesting when drawing with the brush tool. So often when you do your storyboard, you won't start drawing perfect shape. You will often draw rough characters like this, and your lines may not always be closed. There you go. I'm going to draw a wonderful character. And almost looks like Casper the Ghost somehow. And there you go. So if I draw this character, I'm not going to close my lines, just doing something really quick. But then I'd like to do some shading on it. And or just have a matte behind it, because then if I create a background, I'll go ahead and there, I'll draw a wonderful background with mountains. Then it's just, I see through my character. When I draw, if I want to, I can enable the light table to shade the other layers and all that. But then it still doesn't change the fact that when I render out or when I look at it, it just is visible and I see through. Therefore, what I like to do is I use my brush tool, and instead of trying to paint it, so if I was to use my paint bucket, trying to let's make my colors. If I try to paint that, well, it won't work because, it's all open, so you can only paint closed zones. So instead of wasting my time trying to close my lines and all that, I create myself a big brush, really big brush, with a lighter, either white or gray, and I'll start shading my character. But obviously, if I do that, well, it's on top of my lines. Therefore, what I like to use is the draw behind option, which you'll find at the bottom of the tool properties of the brush tool. So if you enable here, it's a little circle with the blue wave or line here. That is the draw behind option. So if you use this, I'll just do this quick sketch. As soon as you let go, it'll pop behind your lines. So you're able to shade your drawing very quickly without, doing a perfect piece of artwork, and it's just still very nice. And I can carry on adding more options. So there you go. So yeah, let it pop behind again. So you can quickly shade characters. So I do that all the time when I board, and it's also super handy. And you can just disable it. So the only thing that this does is that instead of stacking your stroke one on top of the other, it starts stacking down one behind the other. So if I was to take a color right now, bright color, you could see that if I sketch this, it'll just put it behind everything that has been shaded. So it reverses the order. Quite useful for quick sketches and quick drawings. Okay, after that, the other thing that is really useful is to have presets. When you create storyboards all day, well, you'll want to have consistency throughout your panels. You'll want to have your same colors, your different lines that are the same, the thickness of your lines that are the same, and so it's good to create presets. And so if I go to my tool properties view, you saw me change a bunch of different settings in here. And but you can see that there's a preset section that allows you to either use some that are already loaded with the software. So you can have, for example, just a black color so I can show that properly. And I'll create a new panel this way. There, clean canvas. So if I use one of the preset, you can see as I select them, my line has different thickness, different tapering, different smoothings that I can save them there. Not different smoothing, sorry, but different sizes. And I even have some that have bitmap textures in it. If I make this bigger, you'll see that this is a vector frame filled with a bitmap texture. So you can create your own selection of presets, and it's fairly simple. One thing to understand here is that your presets are color independent. So it's really just about your brush size and a few different settings. So what it does is if I click here on the add preset or the new brush button, which will add a new preset to your list, I'll just name it my preset. You'll see that it now adds to the list here, and it will use the current settings. You have additional settings available if you click on the arrow here called Show Extended Properties. So if you click on that, you'll see that there's a lot more available. You can have some paper texture, but you can see that everything is grayed out, and that's because you have to activate it here, and then you can choose a few different options there. So if I go to size and smoothness, I can adjust my maximum size and my minimum size. And you can see that the minimum size is a percentage of the maximum size. So as I reduce my maximum size, you can see that the minimum size reduces along the way as well. So it's really just a percentage of your maximum size. And then I can increase my smoothing. And then that's the central smoothing. So like that was removing all the waves. And contour smoothing for the brush tool will remove extra points around the contour as well. Then you can also set a tip shape. It's probably just, sorry. Why am I looked? Anyway. So let's say those are my settings that I want to use. And then I can create a new preset. I'll call it my preset 2. There you go. Then it's added to my list. So now I'm able to draw and then click on this one, and you can see it's my bigger line. So that's very useful. So yes, the smoothing is stored in it. Sorry. So smoothings is different, maximum size, minimum size, and then the paper, all these extended settings are stored in your preset. But there's one level better with a tool preset. This is specific to the brush. You can do the same with the pencil and with an addition of settings, the start and end, as well as the joint shape, the tool preset. You can have tool preset that create a lot more than just size and smoothing. So if you go to your Windows toolbars, you will find a toolbar tool presets, which is the last one in the list. So it already comes with some preset. And so for example, we created for you the rough brush, the clean brush, the shading brush, and the revision brush. Well, those are just arbitrary. You can do whatever you want with them, but we just provided 4 of them with the software. So I'll create a new panel just to show you what it does. So if I click on the rough brush, you can see that not only does it change the maximum size and the smoothing, but it also selected a different color and bonus created a rough layer. That's the beauty of the tool presets, is that you can decide to lock a color to it or not, or even create a layer. So if I start sketching my rough character there, then I can go with my clean brush and I can start cleaning on top of it. Maybe I just don't want to have a bunch of extra layer for clean and rough. So I can start drawing in the same layer. And then let me show you under the select tool. You have a tool called select by color. The select by color allows you to click on one color and it will be recognized in the entire drawing. So with that, by clicking on the blue, then I can press delete and only my clean is left there. So that's why often we don't necessarily create an additional layer for clean, but again, everybody works differently, so it's up to you to do whatever you want with your presets. And then the other one that we have is the shading brush. You can see it's the big, large brush that I created earlier, and it's also using the draw behind option. And then I can go ahead and just shade my character. And then I have a correction or a revision brush that even creates a revision layer, and I can say, okay, well, this character needs a wonderful little hat. Now, obviously, those are the available ones. If you want to create your own presets, what you have to do first is to set up your color, your maximum size, your smoothing. You can also go in the brush properties window and set the additional, see here, now the chips is working. Then you can set up all your presets or all your settings the way you want them to be. And then you can use in the tool preset toolbar, the new tool preset button. So by clicking on this one, it will pop the new tool preset window. And so that allows you to name it. So I'll call it my brush tool preset. And then I can also select existing icons, or you could even browse for an image somewhere on your computer. I'll just cancel that and load your own icons. So you could really create your own customized tool set and really have icons that you would recognize for your own specific brush, for your own pipeline. Then you could assign it a shortcut. So I'll talk about that in a second, but let's say I say shortcut 3, and you can see that it says unassign. I'll show you how you can assign a shortcut for that brush, and then you can really speed up. You have your brush that creates your layer, sets the color, sets the layer, then you can have your shortcut, you're really golden with the tool preset. So it's really good for you to look into this a bit more deeply and take a bit of time to set up your preset. You'll gain so much time while working in production. So you have the option color that allows you to, I want it to be using my current color or not. If I don't check this box, when I select my, my brush preset, it will just use the current color. If I click color, then it will store this blue in my preset. So every time I'll use my new brush preset, it will be this blue. Obviously, after the fact, once it's selected, you're allowed to change the color. You're not locked in using just that blue. Then layer. this is where you can decide if your tool preset creates a new layer like the revision brush and the rough preset. So you can go and decide, okay, use one of these layers or just create a vector or a bitmap layer. Then you can decide if it's going to use or not the draw behind option. Now this is a 3-state button. You say, okay, if it's not enabled, it will just use the brush preset setting that is in the tool properties view. So if it's enabled, it will use it. If it's disabled, then it won't. But here you can force it to either always be off or on. Again, this is once you select it. After the fact, you're always able to go back in your tool properties view and just change the preset and continue working with it. And it's the same thing for auto flatten if you want the brush to auto flatten as you draw or not. So right now I have a brush that will be blue, that will use a shortcut 3, that uses color and will create a layer of revision, which will be a vector layer. And I'll press OK. So now you can see that it has been added here. Since I didn't load a specific icon, it just created a representation of my preset like you see here. So now I'm able to draw in blue behind the character. Oh no, sorry, I didn't use a draw behind. Yes, I did. I'm just on a different layer. Sorry. So now I have my draw behind, which is not enabled, so okay, so I was talking about shortcuts. So if I want to be able to quickly use my tool preset here, you can go to your preferences. So in Windows, you'll find it under Edit Preferences. And in Mac, you'll find it under the Storyboard Pro menu, Preferences. And in your shortcut tab, you'll find all the way at the bottom, Tool Preset. And then you have all these different shortcuts available. So you have up to 9. Past 9, you cannot use any more shortcuts. Actually, so yeah, it means 10 because we have 0 in there. So if I go to my tool preset shortcut 3, which I had assigned to my preset here, I'll just assign it a key. Let's see. I want to use this. Let's see. Can I use R? Yes, I can. Apparently, wonderful. So here I'm using the R key. So therefore, if I draw and I press, I'll just use a different settings, and I press R, now you can see that it changes and it uses my preset. So again, I encourage you to set shortcuts for your different brush, or not just only brush, but your different tool presets.
So Marie-Ève, one of the questions that came in about presets is whether they want to know whether you can use your custom presets, can you store them for later use on other projects?
Yes, you stole the words from my mouth. Good question, very good question. Peter in New Zealand. Well, hello, New Zealand. Isn't that like really late right now? So thank you for joining us. Okay, so that's the other button here, the Manage Preset. The button here allows you to do a lot of things. I can, first of all, just reorder my preset, because you may end up having maybe 25, 50 presets depending on what you're working on. And so you can just go ahead and reorder them in your list. So if you press OK, you'll see now that they change order in here. If I go back, the one thing that you really want to know about in here is the Export button, and obviously import for later use. So if you click Export, you can select, okay, I want to export all these brush presets. Whoops, sorry, maximize that. Really want it to be big. Okay, so my brush preset here, I can export them all or just a few of them, and then I export them. Then you can decide where you want to save it. It simply creates an XML file, so you will be able to email that to yourself, email that to the rest of your team or friend, or just back it up in case you need to reinstall your computer at some later date. And then that XML file, that's the only thing you need to keep here for re-importing it on a different computer, or just later on, or somebody else wants to import it.
That's nice and light too.
Huh?
It's nice and light.
It's super nice and light. So yeah, that's it. You can easily email that. The other thing too with the preset is that if you want to update a preset, what you can do is just, let's say it's like, oh, that was not the right color, or it's too big or too small. You need to adjust the settings here. It's often the part where people are like, oh, how do I update this preset? Because I created it too fast and I forgot to change something. So you can adjust your settings here. So always start by clicking on the settings here so that it resets all your proper settings. Let's say I wanted to draw behind here. I can enable that. And then if I go to my brush presets, not my brush presets, sorry, my tool presets, I can decide to update it with the current setting. So if you press update, it will use the settings that are in here. And then you can see now that the draw behind for my revision brush is now my rough brush, whatever. So I forgot to select my revision brush. Make sure that you have the right preset selected before pressing the update button. Because now I changed my my rough brush to be using the draw behind option. And then there was one more thing I wanted to show you, and it's the, I forgot what I wanted to show you about the brush preset here. Import, export. Okay, I did show it. Sorry. And you can obviously, yeah, that's it. You can decide to delete some of them too if you don't want to have them in your. At some point, you may have too many of them. So all the ones you don't want, you can either delete them or you could export them before deleting them to keep them as a backup.
Dawn mentioned that it's a great tool. The brush tool presets is a great tool for preparing roughs, clean and solid fills.
Absolutely. Thank you. That reminded me. Okay, that I knew there was one thing I wanted to mention. Okay, I keep saying brush preset because that's the brush that I've been using. But you can use presets. You can create presets for different tools. So you can see that this is with the brush, but I can create the same thing for pencils. We even provided a few pencils. So it applies to different tools. And if I use the pencil tool, you can see here, it selects it there. And then you can do that for a few of your tools in here. Same thing for the eraser. So you have the eraser, the brush, the pencils, and I'm just trying to test out if I can do with the paint bucket. No, that's it. So it's eraser, pencil, and brush. So just you don't think that it's only for the brush tool. I want it to be clear on that front.
Thanks, Marie-Ève.
You're very welcome. And yes, so the last tool I'm going to show you is the paint bucket. So I'll create again just a new panel to have a clean sheet to draw on. So as I draw shapes, obviously I showed you how to do the draw behind. But you can also paint. If you will have closed zone in some of your drawing, and you might even draw a clean background that you need to paint. I'll just show you something else. I'm drawing a chocolate chip cookie.
You're not hungry, are you?
Maybe. Who knows? Maybe for a chocolate chip cookie. Okay, so here I have a chocolate chip cookie, and I'm drawing this on purpose. So I will choose a nice dough or baked dough cookie color, and then I will paint my cookie. The other thing is my wonderful chocolate chip. Well, I can go ahead and click all of them. Sometime, you'll do the mistakes like, oh man, I painted the wrong thing. Well, there's something really nice also in Storyboard Pro when you paint, is that under the paint tool, you'll find the paint unpainted. And paint unpainted is a magical tool. So useful for animation in Paint, for painting sketches that may have a lot of little, you might sketch like this and you're trying to paint something, and you have all these little area that if you try to paint that, it will just be a nightmare. Well, you can use the paint unpainted tool to do just one big circle around your drawing, And all the empty zones that are closed will be painted without repainting all the rest. So this, I find it so useful. And yeah, oops, didn't want to undo that. So just I'm going to do it again. You just have to really paint on painted. It's the one with the little U on the icon. And you just circle around. Whatever is in your selection will be painted. So you can do half and half. Do you prefer bright brown chocolate or white chocolate?
I prefer brown chocolate.
Okay, so all brown chocolate, me too. And just to add to the taste there, I just want to add a little trick you can do too. Is like, I want to add some little shadow on that. And oh yeah, without the draw behind option though. Let's disable this draw behind because I want to stack this line on top. Okay, and then with the dropper tool, I'll pick this cookie color and I'll just make a darker zone. And now this won't work with the paint on painted because this is already painted. But if I go with the regular paint tool, I'll click that area, make that a little more shadowy, grab my select tool, select that stroke and delete it. And now I have a wonderful tone area.
Beautiful. Look at that.
Now I just want to go buy cookies.
Yeah, the Cookie Monster's going to take us.
So I think that covers quite a bit of the vector drawing tools in Storyboard Pro. We have 12 minutes left for any additional question that you may have.
But just before we get to that, I was just going to say, I think it's great that you showed us a little bit about, you know, the cutter tool and how it's great for cleaning up corners, that it works really well with the brush tools, and how you use the draw behind so that you get those shadows in the right way, and a lot of the other things you showed. But I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about, you know, the benefit of having both the bitmap and vector tools available to you, and how you think, like, when you want to use vector tools, you talked a little bit about how they're smoother lines, but can you talk maybe just a little bit more about that?
Okay.
But while you're setting up for that, maybe you can also answer the question from Peter, which is about when you're storing a project on a hard drive, is there a significant difference between saving drawings in vector files and saving drawings in bitmap files?
Actually, yes, there's quite a bit of a difference. So if you draw a vector, like I was saying, those are mathematical curves. So it just stores a little bit of information on the different points. So for example, it will just store the information for, I want to do it content, for the different points that you have on this. Instead of if you have a bitmap drawing, it will store information for every single pixel. So at first, your vector drawings are much lighter. The only time where the bitmap will become more efficient and more useful than vector drawing is if you start drawing, like if you draw a lot of strokes and you sketch like this, then you're creating a lot of points, especially if you have a low smoothing. So if you do this, then you start adding layers of gradients and a lot of tiny details. Then at some point, the vector will become heavier than having drawn this in bitmap. But you need to really draw a lot of vector to pass it.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, like Harmony, you have a bit of, for vector and bitmap tools, you have a bit of the best of both worlds, where you're able to create the look using the one tool and smooth it out with the other, right?
Yes, indeed. So that's it. I always do a choice between when I balance vector and bitmap, depending on the stylistic choice that I want to do. So what I may do often is to create a line that will be drawn in bitmap. What is nice is that with the bitmap is that you can, let me go with the black lines here, is you can start drawing with a few different textures. Then I can also have additional additional brush styles like this. So let me take one that is really textured like this. Maybe not as big though. Okay, and I'll draw something yummy again. Maybe I'll draw a cake. Damn. So I might decide to have a nice sketchy line that is more organic. But and what is nice is as I draw my bitmap line, and there. So I'm having fun drawing a cake. Let's add a few candles. Is it your birthday?
Soon. I'm not saying when, yes.
No, it's fine. But I was not planning on asking you. So there is a birthday cake for Caitlin with, let's say, a few wonderful little things like this. And then instead of drawing everything in and painting everything in bitmap, I might decide to paint it in vector. Okay, then, but what I'm going to do with this is instead of painting on the same layer, because it doesn't necessarily work well because of the anti-aliasing and the transparency on the line. So if I was trying to paint my cake here, you would have this kind of weird artifact like this. So I don't do it like this. I will go on the layer under. And keep in mind that it's not quite the same as Harmony. Harmony has tools that will create invisible stroke automatically on the other layer. Here you have to go a bit more organically, but we created, created the big brushes for that earlier. So I'll do the same again here. Draw behind. I don't even need draw behind because I'm on a different, yeah, it's right here. Put draw behind. Why not? Let's use the tools that we have here. No, I cannot. You know why? Because that's a bitmap layer and I want to draw in vector.
Yes.
Sorry. So here, I will make a big brush. Choose a wonderful color. What color of icing do you want?
Let's make it pink or red.
Oh, wonderful. That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
Pink icing. Okay. So here, well, that's purple. Pink.
I like purple too.
Yeah. Okay. And then I can just go ahead and this is just, that will become just one shape. And so that will make your drawing lighter when you have a lot of them. If you just do your wonderful coloring in vector. And the reason why I draw under is now you can see it overlaps with the color. And so it just gives it a nicer look. You can see.
That's great. That's nice. And also I think there's the fact that it's a little more efficient because you can easily change that color when you need to if you want to just go in and quickly change it. No, sorry, that's
Harmony. That's Harmony.
So thank you, Marie-Ève.
You're very welcome.
Other questions here.
Yes.
Luis Vasquez is asking if you could repeat which tool allows opacity overlap. Is it the pencil or the brush?
Okay, so both of them do. So if I have, let's say I use the brush and I will reduce the opacity of the color here. If you draw your lines like this, regardless if it's brush or pencil, they will do the overlap. It's the same thing. So if you start sketching like this, it goes fairly well. The one thing you have to be mindful of is that if you ever do a lot of zigzag like this to draw, the brush tool will do one stroke. So the contour stroke is here. It doesn't remember every zigzag you did. If you do the same with the pencil line, it will remember different strokes. I'll make it bigger so that you can really see what I'm talking about. But if you do this, then you will get that weird overlapping of the line. And unless that's the effect you're looking for, sometimes, depending what you do, it might be useful. But so there's no different like this. It's just if you start really doing the zigzag, then the pencil is not super useful for that. I would rather do that with the brush tool.
Great, thank you. And Dawn Evelyn gave another tip as well, the fact that when you choosing bitmaps and vectors, sometimes the bitmaps are a little bit larger in file size than the vectors. So another benefit of using vectors is file size.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of suggestions for your cake, but I'm sorry, Dawn.
I'm so happy that people were voting in on the color of the icing. That's amazing. Thank you. Pink, red as well. Yeah, we're right there, so that's cool.
So thank you, Marie-Ève. I think we're pretty much out of time. That was great. Thank you very much for showing us the drawing, the pencil, the brushes and vectors, and a little tip of it using bitmaps and vectors together. And for everyone that's joined us, thanks for joining us for the webinar. We are recording the session, which you'll be able to find on toonboom.com/webinars in the coming days. And if you have any other questions or comments that you want to send our way, please email us at webinars@toonboom.com. So thanks very much, everyone, and thank you again, Marie-Ève.
You're really welcome. Thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.